Should I rent or should I buy? The age-old question. If you're moving to Bremerton, Washington, this video is all about renting versus buying, and we're going to get it going right now. What's up, everybody? It's Cassandra Lopez with the Living in Bremerton, Washington channel and RE/MAX exclusive. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe and tap that little bell so you're notified every time I upload a weekly video. And my team and I get calls all the time from people relocating from out of the area, out of the state, and they've never been here before and they want to know what it's like to live in Bremerton, Washington. So if that's you, be sure to hit subscribe and tap that little bell, and we're going to get this going right now. So right now, the average rent in Bremerton, Washington for a 3-bedroom house is $2,300 a month. So hold on, before you start talking about how greedy landlords are, let's talk about the economy behind it just for a quick second. This isn't going to be super boring. So it's basic supply and demand. A ready, willing, and able renter will pay fair market value for a property to rent. If the property isn't renting at that price, they'll have to lower the price to get a tenant in there, right? So right now our rental market's really tight. So we have a lot of tenants, not a lot of available rentals, which makes the rental rates go up, right? Okay, so fair market rent, it's, kind of a similar concept to the purchase market where we have fair market value for buyers and sellers too. That is an average. So, if you get a tiny 1-bedroom house or if you get like a huge house, of course it's going to be lots different, or if it's got a view or, different amenities affect the rental rate in different ways. I will tell you that a $2,300 a month housing payment is equivalent to a $500,000 house with roughly a 15% down payment at a 3% interest rate. Some costs to expect when you are renting a house would be your deposit, which is set by the property owner, and usually first month's rent. If you have pets and the property owner allows pets, you will likely have a pet deposit as well. So those are some few things to keep in mind. Also, typically in our area, utilities are not included in the rental rate. Occasionally they might be in certain circumstances, but for the most part, they are not. So on top of your housing payment, you're gonna have to take into account, your electricity, water, sewer, gas, if you have natural gas, that kind of stuff. Additionally, if you're a tenant and the property owner decides to sell, then you're kind of at the mercy of, do you get to stay or do you have to go? If you're in a lease, your lease must be honored. That's part of the Landlord-Tenant Act. So if you're 6 months into a 12-month lease and the property owner sells the property that you're living in, the new buyer, so the new landlord, has to honor your lease. So you will be allowed to remain there as the tenant to fulfill the terms of your lease. Now, at the end of your lease, the new property owner does have the right to not renew your lease. So they have to give you notice. They have to give you, appropriate notice that your lease is not going to be renewed. At that point, you will have to find alternative accommodations. And just to be clear, this isn't bashing on rent or rentals or renting a house. If you need to rent a house and you can't buy a house, by all means, it's an amazing alternative. And if purchasing a home just doesn't fit your lifestyle right now, then rent a house. I mean, everyone needs a roof over their head, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. And it's a lot of people we have traveling into town, like traveling nurses and stuff like that, and they're not in town for longer than 6 months, but they still need a place to live. And so there's a lot of places available for traveling nurses, like furnished apartments or furnished Airbnbs or stuff like that property owners will make available just for those specific types of circumstances. So let's talk about buying in Bremerton. So right now in Bremerton, the median home price is $405,000. So if you were to purchase a home for $405,000 with the same parameters that we talked about for 15% down payment, 3% interest rate, your monthly mortgage payment would be around $1,900 a month, barring a few other factors like property taxes and homeowners insurance and that sort of thing. So you could get quite a bit of house for that. Before we talked about the average rental rate in Bremerton is $2,300. So, you could purchase a home and have your own place and be paying less than what you would pay in rents. And that's actually kind of something that we see historically anyway, because rental rates never go down. even during the market crash of 2008, when the housing market fell through the floor and property owners were upside down in their homes for like 10 years following that, rental rates never went down. They may have stayed the same for a while, but then they started ticking back up, and here we are. If you're a tenant, that's just something to be aware of. So your rental rate will never go down. It may stay the same for a while. You may, have a landlord that locks you into like a 3-year lease, and honors that payment for the full 36 months. But then as soon as it's time for your renewal, at that point, I would expect them to increase it. So all just something to keep in mind as you're considering renting versus buying. So I've talked about this 15% down payment a couple of times, and that is by no means average or standard. In fact, if you don't have money for a down payment at all, Washington State has programs that will assist you in receiving a down payment. It's called, down payment assistance, and it's an interest-free loan, if you will, that you never have to make payments on. So it's almost free money. The only time you have to make payments on it is when you refinance your house or you sell your house, then you have to pay it back. So at that point, you're literally getting into a house with almost no money. You can also have down payment funds gifted to you if you have a family member or an inheritance coming. You can also use those funds for a down payment as well. A lot of people give up on the idea of purchasing a home immediately because they think their credit isn't good enough. What if my credit's not awesome? What if I have some, black marks on my credit report that are going to prevent me from doing that? Well, let's not conclude anything. The only way you're going to know if your credit isn't good enough is by speaking with one of our local lenders here in the market. So we have lenders who work with buyers with really tough situations, with really aggressive, extenuating circumstances, and they take every single one of those on a case-by-case basis, line it up with the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac guidelines, and see what they can do to help you. So if your credit is not awesome, they're going to ask, well, why is it not awesome? Is it because credit card debt that was racked up or something like that? Or is it because you didn't pay your rent for 6 months, right? So there's different circumstances that will determine what goes into your credit score. And by your lender looking at and evaluating all of those, they can determine if you, in fact, can purchase a home with your credit score. But the only way to know is to ask. And if you need a referral to a local lender or two here that can evaluate your situation, I would be happy to give you a referral. Just drop it in the comments and I'll be sure to respond. And then there is the daunting question that everybody's asking right now is like, this is an insane seller's market, like insane. We have never seen a market like this. I just started my 9th year in the industry, so I'm still kind of new by industry standards. We have agents who've been in the business for 40, 50, 60 years sometimes, and they just won't retire. And they're even saying that they've never seen a market like this. So yes, it's a seller's market. Yes, you're going to have competition as a buyer. Yes, it's going to be challenging, but it's doable. Buyers are buying homes every day in this seller's market, so I know it's doable, and I represent a lot of them. So if you need to have a little bit of motivation, a little bit of fire, a little bit of, hey, you can do this. I got you. I got your back. I'll give you the tips, the tricks, the tools, the strategies that we are doing with our buyers to help them secure a contract and purchase for a home. That is what we want to share with you. So if you're concerned that it's just too daunting of a market, if you're concerned that there's no way you're ever going to get a house, you're never going to know unless you try. I always like to say there's never a bad time to buy real estate, ever. Real estate's a long-term game. Buying a house is going to be a long-term investment. So we're not looking at, oh, my housing payment, rent versus buy. That's short term. That's your short term look on things, right? You're looking at, yes, my housing payment may be, favorably if it's less, even if it's the same, even if it's the same as renting a house, right? Your net worth and your investment over time is going to increase your portfolio exponentially compared to if you were to maintain rental status. And that's the goal. And that's the big picture idea. It's not just about, I'm overpaying for a house right now. No, you're not. If you're a ready, willing, and able buyer and you signed on the dotted line with that price point, you were willing. You didn't overpay. That's what you agreed to pay. So if you feel that way, that the housing market's too aggressive, that houses are too expensive, that there's no way you're going to pay $50,000 over list price, then don't. Then stay in your rental. And at least you have a roof over your head. And maybe when the market softens a little, you can jump back in. I have a lot of buyers doing that. I had 4 buyers in a row this summer get out of the market just for that reason. And they're just waiting for it to soften a little bit and then they'll get back in. They just felt like it was too aggressive for them. They didn't want to compete that much. And so they just got out, and that's totally fine. And if that's your situation and your circumstances call for that, totally fine. But I am here to say that there is never a bad time to buy real estate. So when the market does soften a little bit and prices maybe taper off or at least stop, skyrocketing, and it's a little bit more favorable conditions for you, then that will be your good time to buy real estate, because there's never a bad time. People are always saying, oh, it's, the top of the market or this and that or whatever. I don't think there's ever really a top of the market, because historically, real estate never stops appreciating. Like, it may have these like micro dips and stuff like this, but it's always going up and up and up. We're never at the top. You look back and it was always worth less 10 years ago. It was always worth less 20 years ago, right? So there's never a top of the market. It will always be an appreciating asset, and you will always have increased net worth and wealth in your portfolio just by owning real estate. And look, I'm not plugging real estate just because I'm a real estate broker and this is my livelihood. I love what I do, and it is not my job to sell anybody anything. It is my job to educate you on the market conditions to see if it's right for you to get in to buy or sell right now. And I love the fact that I get to help people increase their wealth through homeownership, whether that's buying or selling. And that's kind of where I get my purpose out of it. And that's how I feel about it. And so I would love to, extinguish the stigma that, real estate agents are slimy salespeople, because that's definitely not me. I actually didn't get into it for so many years because I thought that way myself. And then once I did get into it, it was a completely different ballgame. Has nothing to do with selling a product, nothing like that. It has everything to do with educating your clients so that they can make the best decision based on the facts given for them and their family. If you like this video, go ahead and give me a thumbs up, and be sure to subscribe to the channel and tap that little bell so you're notified every time I do a weekly video. And if you're ready to schedule a one-on-one virtual meeting with me, there's a link in the description for my calendar, and you can go ahead and hop in there and schedule a time that works for both of us. And if there's a topic that I haven't touched on yet that you would like me to do a video on, drop it in the comments and I'll be sure to reply and do a video for you. So that's all. Bye for now.